Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by my co-host, founding partner here at Spot On Solutions, Katie Harris. Katie, thanks for joining us on the podcast this week.
I appreciate you calling me a co-host and not my sometimes co-host, Hayden. So I'm really more like your sometimes co-host. You let me come on and join when we have really cool guests. So.
Only when we have cool people. No, I'm kidding. You join as I love when you join, Katie, because you know a lot of really awesome people in the industry. And today's guest is no different, which is going to be really cool. But we wanted to welcome on Zack Garrett, who's the founder and CEO of Liftify. Zack, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, Hayden, thanks for having me.
It's going to be awesome. We're excited to talk all things Liftify and the cool things you guys are doing over there. But I think first and foremost, I want to familiarize you with our audience a little bit. You and Katie had the awesome opportunity to go speak at RIA last week. And so there's probably people that are listening to the podcast that maybe were there at the event and heard a little bit from you there, but I'd love to get some more info and just learn a little bit about you. So let's talk about your background. Who is Zack Garrett and how did you end up where you are today?
Oh man, it's a loaded question. Well, I'll give the personal side first. So in addition to running Liftify, which is it passed a startup, but still in the early stages, we're heading to year 4. And so I feel like that's a child. And I also have a 6, 3, and 1-year-old. So like 4 kids, that you're trying to keep alive and on the straight and narrow at all times. So married to my wife, Katie, 3 young kids. We live in Indianapolis. So going through that phase of life, probably like a lot of your listeners have families and navigating the professional and personal side of that. So on the personal side, obviously that's most important, but professional background, interned at a high growth tech company in Indianapolis. In college, always expected to go there. They got sold to Salesforce and a publicly traded company. And so that kind of changed my path as things changed there. And I wanted to do more entrepreneurial things right from the get-go. But I ended up actually spending the first 7 years of my career in a large manufacturing company. There's a global company, but they had recently basically established a marketing department and hired this younger Harvard MBA grad to run it. And he recruited me to come join him. And the pitch was, hey, we've got resources. We just don't have a lot of people. And if you come here, you can break stuff and you can learn a lot. And, you're young, so you probably know digital. So, hey, let's go for it. So took that, and that ended up being a great bet for me. Took different roles and really kind of created a brand, good or bad, for myself that was, hey, we're going to go do big things and we're going to break things and we're going to be digital first. And that was what I was interested in. And so super blessed to have that opportunity and got to take on a lot of different roles. But while I was there, probably now 5 years ago in 2019, I just started to experience some things in my own life. We bought a house and I had to replace a roof. We put in a patio and we did different things. And the only thing I did when we needed those home services is I just picked up my phone and I opened Google Maps on my phone and I started looking and I started reading reviews and calling people. And I was surprised, even in Indianapolis, which is a 1 million person metro, not a small market. There were not a lot of companies that had a lot of reviews and not a lot of recent reviews. And for me as a consumer, I was in B2B marketing and manufacturing. I didn't know anybody that ran a residential company or knew that. Now it'd be a little bit easier in my world to find the right resource, but I just relied on that like a typical consumer. And so while I was kind of experiencing that personally, I was also running we called it customer voice, but basically survey process for this global company. And we focused heavily on net promoter score and all kinds of surveying customers in different ways globally. And so I was kind of already in this world of surveys and reviews, more internally than externally focused. And it just got my gears turning on, man, as a marketer, as digital, I feel like people are more and more going to this. Everybody I know, when they go to eat, when they go look for companies, they're evaluating this. Why do companies not do better at this was really the genesis of it. And so I sat on it for too long, probably like people who are listening to this who wanted to start their business or jump into something. And it took longer than you wanted it to, or than looking back, it should have. But kind of sat on it. And then really when COVID hit, I was forced to slow down. I'd been traveling a ton and just doing the grind, right? And just working my corporate job. And all of a sudden I was home, and joining a lot of Zoom meetings. But I saw, I had a chance to kind of play with this, but I also saw so many small businesses that were really terrified. It's probably a good way to put it, they didn't know what was going to happen. They were stuck at home. They couldn't do anything. And so I said, man, I feel like there's something here that can actually really help people. And I'm going to just start meeting with people and going through it. I know there's solutions out there that can do it, but I don't know, why more people don't do it. So our kind of genesis story is a little bit different. We literally started doing Zoom meetings with small business owners, home service companies, different people, and they were at home. They couldn't go anywhere anyway. So they took the call when I got the intro. And every single individual business owner, we said, hey, does this matter to you? Does what people say about you online matter? And every one of them said, yes, absolutely, it matters. And then we followed up with, okay, well, why don't you have more feedback, right? Or content about yourself written by other people? Why don't you have more votes and reviews? And there was a, variety of answers to that. Some of them have tried technology. Some of them were focused on really internal processes like Net Promoter Score or other factors. And so to make a long story short, completely bootstrapped for the first 9 months. It was totally on the side, just pulling all-nighters. We started to put some pieces together and testing some things and trying some things to help these companies get reviews. And we started to do that. And they started to see huge improvements in SEO, huge lead gains, closer sale times, closer, higher conversion rates on their customers. And they just organically started to tell people about it. And so before we were anything, we started to, I believe everybody that's successful has, probably every day, fake it or make it moments. And so, but for a while we weren't real, but we were driving real results. We were really driving results and just kind of grew out of that. So eventually jumped in full time, have built a team out. And today we serve over 1,000 businesses all over the North America, and even some in Australia as well. Mostly in kind of the home service, residential space, but also auto and a few other sectors. But really, it's been a journey of just trying to build a tech company that also cares about customers and is service focused, and bootstrapping it, which is interesting. And just trying to really grind it out and build something that's special. I think for us, the key differentiator is we've really leaned on a heavy service model for our customers. So I don't believe that small businesses just need software. They need a great service and people behind it that are making it work for them. So that's a big differentiator for us, and kind of how we're going to market as a full solution, as we call it, not just buying another piece of software you're not going to utilize well. But yeah, that's a little bit of background, but that's where we are today.
I didn't realize
cool.
that. I didn't realize that your whole business kind of really took its launch during COVID.
Right. Yeah. During COVID, kind of came into the summer of 2020 when everything opened up. It really opened up. We started in kind of home services, like discretionary, and, it was gangbusters there. So it was a good time for us to get into that. But yeah, it's crazy time. We're a COVID business, I guess you'd say.
So one of our core values here at Spot On Solutions is we face challenges with optimism, right? And we believe in big things. Those are two of our core values, actually. And I heard you kind of reference both of those things as you talked through that. But I love a story that's like, okay, well, we're in COVID. I'm home, right? What's this going to look like? I'm going to get on the phone. I'm going to take advantage of this and turn it really into something pretty cool. Hayden, Zach and I, we're at the same places. We cross paths a lot, but really didn't get to know each other until just a few months ago as we, started working on this panel together. And Zach, one of the other things I heard you say is like, it's not just service, it's support, right? And so talk to me a little bit about that vision, right? I know you guys have a support heavy model where your client really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, you brought up core values, and it goes down to that of, for me, like on a very personal level, my dad ran a small business while I was growing up, and some years were good and some years were really tough. It wasn't one of those stories that it scaled to $50 million and he sold it, right? It was a grind. And so I think growing up in that, I have got an appreciation, for local business owners and people doing it, in their community, but also understand the seriousness of it. And I think that for me, customer excellence is one of our core values. And we probably live that out to a fault, where we should probably focus on growth more than we do, because we're so heavily invested in our current customers and doing that and making sure they're successful. But I think it goes down to that core value and belief that, man, why we exist is to really help the local business. And when we peel it back, I think for us, Katie, we looked at, and I saw this in a Fortune 500 company, and I see it in really small businesses. Software isn't the answer to things. Software can help make things, optimize things, make them go faster, right? AI can help, optimize things, but you actually have to have a strategy and execute at a really high level and have the support behind it. And so from the very beginning, we've built that into our model and then say, hey, when you work with us, you get an actual team member that is watching your campaigns, almost like an agency, would be, because we believe reputation and driving online reviews and building an online reputation is so important that you need an actual partner, in that more than just an app. And I would say that's really what we strive to be with our customers, is a partner, not just an application.
Yeah. I think that's a piece that a lot of businesses miss out on. And it goes beyond even like, like software. It goes beyond, we obviously work very closely with a lot of companies, and help them with their digital marketing. But that's a common, conversation that I have with clients all the time is like, hey, it's really easy for us to market and help you grow if you're an awesome company. And I think they're looking, a lot of times people out there are looking for the software that's going to be the magic bullet, or the marketing agency that's going to be the magic bullet. It's going to drive all these leads. And so like helping them understand that like this is a process, and like you've got to make sure that you're dialed in with your services and your team, and then we can then market that and help that grow, or then we can then implement this software that's going to help you get more reviews. Like as long as you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing and you've built a team in such a way, like we can implement a tool that's going to help optimize, but it's not going to be this magic bullet, this silver bullet that's going to, fix everything and solve everything for you.
Yeah. And the reality is the work we do really amplifies whatever you are, right? Whoever
Right.
you are, we're going to help spotlight that. And so
Yep.
we tell people right up front, hey, most of the time, businesses we work with, they do a much better job than their reputation shows online if they're not
Right.
proactive. So it's a really fun thing because you're just helping them tell their story, right?
Right.
But, we've had conversations before where the owner's like, hey, I really want to hide this. I don't want to ask. I only want to ask 1 out of 10 customers. And the question is why? Oh, if you don't feel good about your quality, this isn't a good fit, because you need to actually live out that service component and be proud of your work in order for, us to amplify that message that you want to get out. It's got to be real.
Yeah. I love it. Katie, I think it would be good, because, so many things that Zack has been saying tie in so closely to the digital marketing aspect. Again, we talk to clients all the time here about reviews. It's something that we're trying to do a better job of, that we're trying to help our clients do a better job of, because it really is getting more and higher quality and following up with customers on reviews is kind of like the foundation of your digital marketing online. Like at the end of the day, you can have really awesome marketing, a really awesome website, be showing up on the top page of Google. But if people go and see on your profile that you have 1 review or 5 reviews, like you're not going to be very likely to convert or to help that, turn that person into a customer. And so much of what Zack has mentioned, I think ties really in closely to marketing, which you guys were obviously on a panel together at RIA. I would suspect that a lot of your conversations at RIA were kind of built around that piece, right? And so talk a little bit, maybe Katie and you and Zack can kind of both jump in and do this, but talk about some of the things that you feel like are connected when it comes to digital marketing and reviews and stuff like that.
Sure. First of all, we had a really great time talking at RIA together. I think it's funny, Zack, I hear you like talking about how old your kids are, and I'm like, oh, they're almost the exact same age as my grandkids, right? I'm like, oh, those are really fun ages. Those are the ages of my grandkids. The real thing that I think we kind of clicked on as we got up there is like really legitimately caring about people's businesses and knowing that when you step into that space and you're running a business, like you're wearing a lot of hats and you're doing a lot of things and you want to be successful, but there is a lot of things coming at you that are hard. And how do you know and decide what's most important, right? Where do I put my time? Who do I trust? I always talk about when people come to us with their marketing, and Zack, this is the same thing when people come and like, this is my reputation, help me grow it. They're really like, this is my baby. And I don't know you. I don't know the people that work with you, but I'm going to trust you with my baby to come in here and help do it. And so I think Zach and I had some fun conversations. We had some great questions at RIA that came to us, and a lot of them were around like, hey, what do I do? What's most important? How do I go get the reviews? And so I think it'd be good for our audience. Like, we can just kind of talk through that a little bit. Like, how do you go get reviews? That's one of the first questions we get. People are like, obviously, I want more reviews. Obviously, I want my digital marketing to work better. Obviously, I want people to know who we are, but how do you go and actually put a system together for your team and go get those reviews? So Zach, why don't you jump in and talk? And Hayden, you can jump in here too, because I know our clients are asking you all the time, how do I go get the reviews? What do you guys find right now is really working for people in the home service industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this might be a sneak peek to my book recommendation later on, but I've really been focused just even personally on the idea of doing things that will 10x your business versus just 2x. What is going to lead to big improvements and real change for the positive versus just minor improvements that are very difficult. And I think the first thing, Katie, that we kind of hit on is just this idea that if you understand that your reputation online in the way that that helps accelerate your digital marketing, the overall value of your company and long-term, that it truly is one of the biggest levers you can pull for your business, and understand how valuable it actually is. That's, I think, the first thing, that we hit on that people really need to understand is this matters a ton to the long-term success of your business. And if you really get that, and it's more important than whatever issues going on or whatever immediate thing, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is a critical thing to our business. So just laying that out there, and we can get into some of the details why, but I think we would both argue this is one of the most critical and foundational parts of your business. And so once you're bought into that and you understand it, then the question is how, and I think we talked about,
let it happen. I think that's the mistake we make as business owners. We're just like, oh, if we do a good job, people will leave us reviews, right? Or we just expect it to kind of happen, but without intentionally having a plan for it, you look back, 3 months later, 6 months later, 1 year later, and you're getting creamed in the reviews and a lot of missed opportunity.
Yep. Yeah. And I think looking forward and saying, look, we firmly believe in 3 to 5 years, if you run a business that doesn't have hundreds of reviews, you are going to get crushed. Right. And I don't say that to scare you. That's real. No matter what kind of industry you're in, you've got to figure this out because your competitors are, and I think people just need to understand the urgency. And then once you get that, I think the second thing that I kind of walk people through is, okay, if I understand it's important as the leader, secondly, I got to make sure my team understands why this is important. And it's not just because I said it was, it's important for us to recruit good talent. It's important for us to get more leads, make the business easier, help everybody to make more money. This matters to all of us. And I think that is really where we see a difference in some of our customers on companies that are successful versus companies that have crazy success working with us, is that not only the owner, but the leadership team and the whole team understanding and buying in that, hey, I get it. It matters. I'm a part of it. And we all need to do this together, and it makes a difference. So I know that might seem obvious, but we do calls all the time where it's not, that people really, their whole team needs to understand, hey, and if you run a business, this is a good question for you to ask your team in your next leadership meeting. Hey, does our whole company understand that our reputation, our reviews in something is super important, and it's going to help determine how successful we are down the road? I would ask that question.
Yeah. I think, one thing that even us internally here at Spot On Solutions, Katie, have done, and I feel like a lot of companies do this, is you get so caught up in the day-to-day work that you often forget to treat yourself almost like a customer or a client. I know that's something that we have, and recently changed and have been better about at Spot On Solutions. But beforehand, we're like, we were so worried about our customers and helping them grow and clients and things like that, that at the end of the day, you've still got to treat yourself like a customer and be like, oh, we've got to go ask for reviews. Like we've got to kind of, and I think a lot of business owners are that way, that they're so caught up in the work and the grind and making sure what they're providing is a good service, which is awesome. I'm not saying you shouldn't put a priority on that, but you've also, like you're saying, Zach, like it's got to be something that is important, that your team knows is important. And I love that you highlighted on the competition aspect, because you're totally right. Like we've even seen it within the last, I would say even the last 12 months, we have, yeah, I think of this example a lot. Like we have a customer, it's a great client of ours, been a client for a really long time. About a year ago, they had, a couple other competitors in the area that were, doing some Google ads, maybe running some Google guaranteed stuff, things like that. As of this last month, they have 10 other competitors in their area that are now running Google ads or doing some kind of digital marketing. And so how do you differentiate yourself? How do you separate yourself? It's the review piece. And so I love, the data that you shared there, like in 3 to 5 years, if you don't have hundreds of reviews, like it's going to be hard for you to do well marketing wise. And it's totally true. Totally, totally true. Katie?
Yeah. And I'm just thinking too, and it's hard to catch up, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can catch up for sure, but that consistent flow of reviews coming in, the system that brings them just consistently, that's what makes a difference. You don't have to go have 100 tomorrow, but you need to have a system that is consistently building on that and growing to it. I think the other thought I just keep having, and we talked about this a lot in the panel, is like as consumers, like just think of yourself and in our own behaviors, right? Like we are demanding. We are very demanding now, and post COVID, maybe even more demanding, right? We have so much access to information, and it does always like really boggle my mind. Every single stat you look at says people will trust an online review as much as they'll trust a review from somebody they know. That's pretty impactful. And if you stop and think about what that means for all of our businesses, right? Our businesses, people listening, but you think about what that means. If somebody will go trust strangers and what they're saying as much as they'll trust their sister or their neighbor, I mean, that tells you how important that piece is, and how impactful it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a common thing that I think just gets missed. Another common question, and I would pose this to both of you, because I don't know if something similar was asked at the panel, but it's something that multiple clients have asked me within the last couple of weeks, is like, how many reviews should I get? Is there a goal number of reviews? Like, is there something that Google says? Everything, I always come back to that it totally depends on your competition and where you're located. But I'd love to kind of hear from you. A question that I get all the time is like, how many do I need to get? How many do I need to, do we need to have 1,000? We have 1,000,000, like, what do we need to have? Right. And so I don't know if either of you have kind of a specific answer, because I kind of keep coming back to what your competitors are doing in your competition.
Yeah. If I can throw an even preview question before I answer that one, I think the precursor to that is, where should I get reviews? And we get asked that too. And then how many do I need? And the where is, my advice is always don't overcomplicate it. Where are your potential customers that you want to buy your product? And the good news is this market is consolidated drastically to Google. If you run a home service company, just own Google. Don't worry about anything else. Just win that game and you will win. If you're a restaurant, probably Open Table and Google, right? Those two. You need to win, but depending on your market, where do I need to get reviews? Okay, the data says 73% of reviews left last year were on Google, out of all the places, right? And they've consolidated that market drastically. So just win that, and then look at Google, to your point, Hayden, and say, okay, how many do I need? I think the interesting thing is, depending on what kind of business you're in and where you're at, everyone's kind of perspective is different, right? If you have 15 reviews, you think, man, if I just got to 100, I would be rocking it, right? But we also work with HVAC companies that have 4 different cities and they have 5,000 reviews each on their markets. But guess what? Their competitor has 4,500 and is chasing them, right? Trying to take over. Yeah. And next year, they're both going to be at 10,000, right? And so I think your answer is spot on to what we say, is that, look, it's relative to where your competitors are. If your competitors have 5,000 and you run a super high volume business, great. If not, if you're a lower volume, we look at it and kind of share. This is more anecdotal than it is, hard fact, but we kind of see that Google gives juice at what we would call like 100 milestones. So it just feels like, and again, I don't know if you guys see this with some of your customers, like, once you hit that 100 mark, it seems to help some, 250, 300, 500 reviews, 1,000 reviews. Like, we celebrate every 100 with our customers because we believe that those kind of are indicative of crossing milestones and giving you more juice. I don't think there's a perfectly clear answer to it. But I would say, always be striving to the next milestone or that next
Yeah.
100 or 50, and then stay above your competition is how we would look at it.
Yeah. It's a great answer.
I think that's
Katie, any
great.
thoughts on
I
that?
do. No, I just like maybe to add on to it. Like I tell people, because it's got to be top of mind for us, I'm like, set a reminder in your calendar, right? So
Yeah.
that every 30 days, set a reminder in your calendar so it doesn't slip off the plate, right? And go check and see, where am I at? How much growth did we get this month? And then go check your competitors. How much growth did they get? Because Hayden, to your point, sometimes you blink and you're like, whoa, where did they come from? Right? Like
Yeah.
what just happened. And while you don't want to take the sprint and go get them all at once, it happens. And sometimes if you take your eye off of it, you can be really surprised and be like, what just happened? And so I like to tell people, hey, just take it off your mind, stop worrying about it on a daily basis, put a calendar reminder in there, right? And just keep your eye on it. Do something to keep your eye on it, build your system, teach your team, get them on board, and then keep your eye on it.
Yeah, because again, I just keep coming back to, and that's why that question is such a loaded question coming from potential clients we might work with or whoever, even just some a friend that owns a business or something. Like, it's such a loaded question because I think people ask that so that they can get to a point and be like, okay, I don't need to ask any more reviews, and it's like you can't operate like that. To Katie, to your point, and Zach, you've mentioned this, like, build a system and just continue to use that system constantly. Is it a weekly reminder in your phone to ask for a review? Is it, maybe in your CRM, every time an invoice goes out, you get a notification that you need to send a review, whatever it might be, right? However you work with maybe a software like Liftify, whatever it is, like, build the system, and then just, no matter what, it's a non-negotiable, you implement that system and use it constantly, because you don't want to hit 100 reviews and be like, I'm good, I'm going to sit back and relax, and I don't need to worry about asking for any more reviews, because eventually maybe it's 3 to 5 years, maybe it takes a few years, your competition is going to catch up. And so you've got to always build a system, implement a system, and just continue to work it.
Well,
and
I think too, Hayden, if I can add, I think people lose sight of how important recency is in everything, both from a digital marketing perspective. You have to always be producing new. You can't ever stop or you're going to get penalized in search. And then secondly, consumers really care about the recency of your reviews. There's newer data out that 80% of people only read reviews from the last 30 days. And just think about your own experience. When you go look for a restaurant, you don't just start aimlessly filtering, right? You go to newest and you say, I want to see people today or yesterday that had a good experience here. And every home service business, by the way, that's happening too. People are looking for the newest. And so your potential customers want to see that, and Google really cares. And so you can't ever stop doing marketing, right? Which is what it is. We can't just stop and expect it to work. You've got to continually do it.
The Success Elevated podcast is brought to you by SOS Navigator. SOS Navigator is an on-demand training platform geared towards marketing, personal development, and business growth. We understand that as a business owner in the service industry, you wear a million hats. Let SOS Navigator be a simple and cost-effective way for you to continue to grow your business. Click the link in the show notes below and use code SOS Podcast to get 10% off your next on-demand training course.
So one of the questions we got, and Zach, I thought you were super smart when you answered this, and people just want to know, they're like, how many stars is too few, right? Do I have to have 5 stars? And what should I do? And so, Zack, I loved the information you shared on that panel. You want to go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I hope I can match the expectation here, what I said. So I think overall, I think people that we talk to hundreds of business owners, they're too worried about getting a negative review that they give up so many positives. And so I think this is a really important, if you're somebody that just is fearful of negative reviews, like, listen to this, kind of part, because I think this could change kind of your mentality for it. I think on the low bar, first of all, and everybody knows this, you've got to be above a 4.0 or you're considered untrustworthy. If your business is under a 4.0, I think I said this on the panel, tell your team, we have an emergency. We need to get this to a 4.0 tomorrow and really focus on this. But beyond that, we really recommend that people work towards being above a 4.5 or higher, right? 4.7 is probably like perfect or ideal. But what we see that we talked about and answered some questions on is too oftentimes people are so worried about being a 4.7 instead of a 4.8 that they give up a ton of volume, right? So they might have 50 less reviews in the year. And I made the point there that I would much rather run a business, and I believe I would get the benefit of having 150 reviews at a 4.7 than having 35 at a 4.9 or a 5. And I can guarantee you your search rankings are going to be different. What you pay for your paid, your credibility in the market. And that's a really hard thing for people to grasp. So at a high level, you've got to be above a 4. In an ideal world, be above a 4.5. That's what you want to work to longer term. But don't try to be perfect. I think the other side of that, Katie, that we talked about is if you're perfect online, you look inauthentic. It's like buying an Amazon product that has 1 million perfect reviews that all look fake, right? Like you don't want to be that company either. You want people to see some of the real bad reviews that you responded to and took care of it, right? Like I think personally, I think that's some of the best reviews to say we had one. I'll admit this, right? We had a review that said, "Hey, we had a rough start. Some of the stuff wasn't working, but the team was great, got it fixed. We're on track, and now we're started and it's going." And my team was kind of nervous about it because we mostly get 5-star reviews. And like, obviously it's core to our business. We got to drink our Kool-Aid. And I told our team, I said, guys, this is great because everybody knows when you buy technology, it doesn't always work perfect and fit in. But the fact that we figured it out and got them going, and now they left us a 5-star review. Those are the kind of reviews I want, right? That are real. So I'll throw it back to you, Katie. I know you had some thoughts on it too, but I think people they're too worried about the bad that they leave so much good on the table.
Well, and I mean, we know how we are. Yeah, like we know human nature. We know people leave bad reviews, right? Like we are more likely as humans to leave a bad review than a good review. It's just human nature. And so to see somebody that never has a negative feels really fake and throws up warning signals. I think the real opportunity, honestly, and Zach's exactly right, is how we respond to them. So we have a lot of opportunities in how we respond. And number one, I don't want to miss the chance to just say, don't forget to respond to the good ones. I think that sometimes like, oh, you got a 5-star review. That's awesome. And then we go about our day. And I always think like, okay, think about this in real life. If somebody walks up to you and says something really nice, you don't just turn and walk away without saying thank you. And so, but we'll do that online sometimes and we'll ignore those. And I'm like, don't forget that human element where you can come in and say, hey, thank you. Loved working with you. Right. And then the negative reviews. Hey, we have a real opportunity here to show what it's like working with us and let them see who we are and how we handle things and get a sense for that. Right. And don't ignore the fact that maybe what was said in that review could actually help you as a business. There's something to be said. Yeah, there's two sides to every story. And sometimes those negatives were like, oh, wait a minute. Like, let me tell you my side of the story here. This isn't fair. That's very true. But sometimes it's like, hey, you know what? Like we can learn from that. We can take that and do something with it. But at the end of the day, one of the things I love about reviews that's a little bit overlooked is Google loves current and relevant content. And whenever somebody takes the time to go leave you a review, whatever that is, they're leaving content up there for Google to go crawl. So it's one more place that you can go earn some internet real estate space, which is gold. And so thank you for that, right? Thank you for leaving the review to build the social proof and improve my presence, all of that. But also thank you for the content. And now don't miss the opportunity to jump in there and add your own content so that we have one more place that Google can find us and help rank us and make sure we're showing up for people.
Yeah. And I think too, Hayden, I don't know if you want to talk about just negative reviews and kind of handling that, but one of the things that just comes to mind that based on what you just said, Katie, is the fact that, we get asked the question a lot, how many of my customers should I ask? Should I really ask everybody? There's that crazy customer, should I just ask people that give us some kind of vote of confidence on an internal survey? What does that look like? And our recommendation to people is always, you should be willing to ask 90% of your customers. I'm going to assume that 10% are maybe crazy, right? Or things really go south, and we're not advocating you shoot yourself in the foot, right? On stuff, but you should be willing to ask 90%.
Try to get the negative review, right? Well, that's not what we're saying.
but you should put in a process and a system that allows an out or a way for somebody to ask, an out, but that build a culture that says we ask for reviews even when things don't go perfect. And what we've seen is, man, when you do that in your business, all of a sudden you just change the customer experience process in a good way, because your team knows, hey, we're asking publicly for feedback. I'm going to go the extra mile on this, right? My name might be mentioned in this, good or bad. And as a leader, I think just setting a tone to say, hey, I believe we run a good company. We're going to start asking almost everybody for a review and go out there and ask. It does more to change the customer experience in a positive than people give it credit for.
Yeah, totally. And I think people get paralyzed by that fear a little bit too much. I know, again, just thinking internally here at Spot On Solutions, we've had times where it's like, man, we're worried what this person might say, or man, we did a really good job for them, but we still don't know. Maybe they're going to say, and it's better that you just build a system, build a process, and send those review requests. And then you have the opportunity to respond to them. And both of you mentioned this, like respond to reviews. Katie, I love the idea of like, it's another piece of content out there on the internet when we're thinking about stuff like that. And it allows you to address any concerns they might have. Or if they don't have concerns, they leave you a great 5-star review. You can respond with, a quick message about the job you did for them, right? Like it's a great way to add, people don't realize it's an opportunity to add some SEO keywords to things. If you go out and clean carpets for somebody and they're super happy with it, you can say, Bob, we were really happy to come, clean your carpets in your home in Indianapolis. Like it was like something like that can be really, really helpful and help your Google business profile rank better on the internet just by taking the time out of your day to go respond with that quick little sentence. And so like little things like that can make all the difference. And again, I love the idea of just going back to like build a system, whatever that system is best for you. Maybe it's somebody in your office manually sending reviews. Maybe it's a technician right after they leave and clean up and take all their tools out, they're giving them a review card. Maybe it's you personally as the owner can send review requests. Whatever is your system, build it out and work the system. And I promise you that it's getting more reviews, regardless of if they're 4.7 or 4.5 or 5 stars, regardless, it's going to make all the difference. It really is the bedrock.
I think we really we focus on reviews from the outside perspective, like what are people going to think and how's this going to help my business? But I also really like the conversation around, hey, make this make you a better company, right? Be proud of who you are. Put together services that people are going to want to rave about, right? And I think that also builds a culture that's going to attract talent. People are going to want to work with you. People are going to want to be a part of it. And that's pretty powerful. And I think that's one of the things, Zach, you and I really connected on the most is like, we just love helping people grow their businesses. Like number one, I think is probably fair to say we love winning, right? Zach came from March Madness to RIA. So we like winning. That's for sure. We want to get out there. We want to be the best. We want to win, but we love having businesses grow and succeed and seeing what that does for their lives, for the people they employ.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Proud Purdue grad. It didn't turn out how I wanted, but proud to be there. And it was fun.
That's cool.
Hayden, if I can lay out just, I think for the listeners, just a few practical things, like how do I get a review? It's probably Katie, the most common question we got.
I was going to ask you, like, what would be a simple system that somebody could build? This is perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, as we started out, you've got to be bought into that it matters, and your team has to be bought in. That's number one. I think number two is you need to commit to asking what we would recommend 90%, right? And have a good process for determining. I wouldn't even determine when somebody's in. I would say determine what is going to be your approval process to say, hey, we're not going to ask this person. And how do we make that easy? But just build a culture that says, hey, we're going to ask. And now that you've got that established, the question is, well, when do we ask and how do we maximize it? Right. And so I think for us, we always coach people to say, okay, you need to look at your business, or we'll do it with you, and identify when the customer is most happy. in the job. And that's not always at the end. If you run a restoration company, it's probably not at the end. If it's a recon job, right? It may be 3 days in, or it may be a weekend, right? Or, if it is a traditional home service company, it might be at the end of a job. But when is your customer most happy or feel the benefit of your company most? And implement a program there to do it. And so for us, we kind of look at it two ways. There's point of sale solutions or on site. If you're with a customer, things you can utilize, QR codes, texting them, depending on the business, that makes sense. But getting in front of somebody and asking is great. That at that ideal time, perfect. And then secondly, also having some kind of follow-up process. And, this is what we do at Liftify, but our data shows out that people miss at least half the reviews they could get if they don't have good follow-up processes and sequences that aren't reliant on their technician in the field or their team, but done at a company level to really follow up. So whether you work with us or not, I would say, commit to this. We're going to ask 90%. When is our ideal time? And how do we do a great job of both, number one, getting it at that point of sale or that customer interaction live? And then secondly, how do we have a good follow-up process that's automated, sustainable to make sure that we're following up to get those? And then lastly, to Katie's point, you've got to respond to the reviews. If you do those things, you will get them. You've got to respond and tie off that loop and thank them once they do it.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
All right, Zach. It's been fun having you on. I love the conversation. I look forward to doing a lot more work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Great system build out, Zach. I'd love to let you, kind of hear at the end here. I'd love to kind of hear, let's plug a little bit for Liftify, because I think what you're talking about is awesome and the system is built out and great. But I would assume there are probably a lot of businesses that are listening here that are like, we've got a system, but we'd like a better way to follow up, or we'd like a way to maybe automate this with our CRM. What are some things that you guys can offer that would maybe kind of help some businesses that are in a position like that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Liftify, the idea behind our brand is that we want to help lift companies up and take them to the next level. That's the whole genesis of the name. And what we really focus on is doing that through the reputation space and the customer interaction. And so our key kind of product sets are around driving feedback, whether that be public or even private, doing surveys, and customer interactions. So that could be one-to-one texting, improving that customer experience, allowing them to do that. So if you're looking, business looking to take your reputation to the next level and implement public review generation, solutions in your business, get better internal feedback, or maybe rethink that. You're too leveraged on internal and you need to figure out how to navigate that. We're doing a lot of that in the restoration space with some large companies right now. Or if you're just like, hey, we need a better way to talk to our customers, message them doing the job, do those kinds of things. We've got a platform, system, and support team and success team to help people maximize that and really grow their businesses in this digital age.
Love it. Zack, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was really awesome and insightful. I think you and Katie both had some great feedback on the review question, and it's been top of mind for me just because I've had so many clients that have reached out and, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do to help our marketing be better? Right? Because at the end of the day, that's what I talk about with a lot of people is how can we make their marketing better? And the thing that I come back to all the time is reviews. It really is the foundation of where this all starts. And yeah, your insights into building a system and Katie following up with the SEO and the content, that's also important. And so thank you both. Zack, I want to close out by asking you the same 3 questions that we ask all of our guests. And I'm sure, feel free to kind of take them whatever direction you want or kind of manipulate them however you feel. But first question, favorite book or podcast that you've read or listened to recently, or maybe that you've read or listened to in the past that you just really love?
Yeah, something I've read twice since the beginning of the year is a book that's popular right now called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And the premise of the book is, hey, it's actually easier, or maybe simpler, maybe easier is not the right word, simpler to think about really scaling and doing things at a different level than just a slow, steady death march of slow improvement. And I think that's helped radically change my thinking around everyday decisions. Hey, what is this going to mean in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Do I want this customer in 3 years? Is this process going to work? If we scale 10 times what we are today versus just, hey, is it a little better? So I'd recommend that book. Very challenging, and will get people thinking on that.
It's awesome. That's a great recommendation.
You do believe in big things, Zach.
10x instead of
Oh.
2x.
X
That is
instead of
big.
2X.
Absolutely.
Love
I like
it. Second question, Zach. If you could, and sorry, yeah, if this is a tougher question, not tough, but it's, feel free to take it whatever direction you want. We've had great answers where people are like, well, it's how I start my day, or it's what I do at lunch. But most of the time I ask people, you wear a lot of hats, you've got a lot going on, you've got 3 kids, you've got a lot going on in life. What do you do at the end of the long day to kind of recharge your emotional and mental batteries?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing I don't do that a lot of my friends who are running high growth companies, I've stayed away from alcohol. Is something that's been, a key thing. A lot of people that I know and, even respect that's the solution that they have. And that can be a slippery slope, especially if you're a leader and you're running a business. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something I've, stayed away from, in doing this, because there are days that are just really hard. So that for me is one thing I don't do. I think for me, it just goes back to the family piece. Like we have 3 young kids, so like I don't golf at all. There's not really a lot of time. But tonight I'm coaching a t-ball game at 6, right? Like that's really life giving to
Love
me,
it.
and just just getting back to the why. Just really unplugging. Sometimes here's I guess a good answer. I'll leave my phone and my computer in my car until
Why?
like 9 or 10 at night, and then I get it out and work for a little bit. But I think for me, like I just don't have the discipline of it sitting right there, to leave it alone,
Yeah.
right? So just kind of leave it in the car has been a good tool for me to just de-stress and focus on the family and what's actually important.
That's awesome. I've had multiple people that, yeah, I mean, Katie and I are kind of steeped in this stuff just because we work with digital marketing on a day-to-day basis. But I mean, man, if you could shut your phone off even for just a little bit every day, it would make a big difference. And so I love that answer. But that's awesome. And I love the idea of yeah, like it's hard to find a balance. And so you're probably not necessarily going to find the perfect balance, but find something that works best for you. So that's great. Last question, Zach, and feel free again to kind of take this whatever direction you want. But if you could rewind to the beginning of your career, and that can be beginning of your career with Liftify, or if you want to go earlier, or graduating from Purdue, whatever it might be, and tell yourself one thing, tell younger Zach one thing, what would that one thing be?
Yeah, well, I'll give you another book recommendation or advice. There's a book that's not new called Never Eat Alone. And the whole idea about is always be around other people, always be not even necessarily networking, but just building relationships, getting to know people. And I wish I would have implemented that sooner. I still wish I would have done better. But especially when you're young, right out of school and stuff, you don't have as many responsibilities. What you do have is the luxury of time and a little more capacity to do things. And I think as I look at whether it's my Liftify journey or other things, like nobody is self-made and everybody is here because other people have helped you. And just spending time meeting new people, getting coffees, getting lunches, not getting so focused. I'm a grinder and just want to get it done and just workhorse, right? But peeling back and saying, hey, I need to build relationships with people, and that strategically maybe the best thing I could do. And you never know how those relationships could come back to benefit you or that other person long term. And so I think advice to my younger self or the young people on my team, they each have goals around meeting new people outside of our business, just in the community and business, right? Because I think that's important. And so I'd encourage anybody at any stage, including myself, telling myself, hey, don't get so caught up in it that you're not building relationships with people around you.
It's a great answer. It's a great way to close it out, because a lot of what our conversation today, even though for those that are listening, it might have been focused around this thing called reviews, it really is about people. And how do you surround yourself with people that can help you be better? How can you help those around you be better? And yeah, I love the idea that it doesn't always have to be networking. It doesn't always have to be about how do I 10x myself or my business. It can just be about like building a relationship and making friends. And yeah, maybe some point that turns into something else, but that's awesome. That's a great way to close this out. Zach, seriously, thank you so much for coming on today. Super insightful. I know our audience is going to get a lot of great value out of this episode. And so we hope to have you on again in the future. I'm sure you and Katie will probably be traveling at various different events. You'll probably even speak on another panel at some point. And so we'll definitely have to have you on.
You bet.
Yeah. Thanks
Zach,
for having me. It's been an honor.
You bet. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, Zach, what is the best way they can do that?
Yeah, liftify.com is a good way, or contact me directly, just Zack, Z-A-C-H, at liftify.com. That'll end up in my inbox. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.